Hi, welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole. I'm Nathan Hale. Every idea begins as a spark, brief, flickering, impossible to ignore. The question is, do you follow it? Down the rabbit hole is what happens when you do, moving through the winding pathways where curiosity actually lives. Where art meets science, where the mythic meets the measurable, where the ancient and the modern share the same breath. Here, AI isn't an oracle, but a companion, a mirror for the unknown, a way to bridge disciplines, test ideas, and notice patterns we might otherwise miss. Because this isn't about certainty, it's about following the spark until it reveals something we didn't know how to see before. So take a breath, step closer, and let's see how deep this one goes. Today, that spark leads us to a question that sits at the crossroads of myth and lived experience. Why did the Norse imagine a serpent encircling the world, swallowing its own tail, a mythic shape that, however unconsciously, mirrors the ocean's own circulating heartbeat, a vast continuous motion of water that we now understand as the global ocean circulation, the great flow we call the AMOC. Not because they believed in monsters for spectacle, but because myth was their way of mapping the invisible, motion, danger, balance, the forces that shaped their world long before science named them.
They said the serpent slept beneath the sea, its coils wrapped around the world of men, and when it moved, the ocean rose and the earth trembled. To the Vikings, this was no fairy tale. It was the heartbeat of their world.
Today, we set sail on one of the most powerful and potentially misunderstood myths in human history, the Midgard serpent, Jörmungandr. A creature said to encircle the earth, swallowing its own tail. For centuries, scholars have read it as a symbol of cosmic order, of boundaries between chaos and civilization. But what if, and stay with me here, the Norse weren't only imagining the boundaries of the cosmos? What if they were describing something real? Something they could feel under their ships, the pull of the currents, the swirling tides, the living, breathing ocean. This is the story of how mythology, linguistics, and environmental science might just coil together into the same serpent. So when we meet Jörmungandr, the World Serpent, we aren't stepping into fantasy. We're stepping into a worldview born from weathered hands, open seas, and generations of reading the water. And there is one tale, one encounter that captures this worldview more clearly than any other. The day Thor rode into deep water and tried to pull the unseeable into the light. It begins with a fishing trip, a storm, a coil beneath the waves.
Thor visits Heimir, an older sea giant known for his terrifying strength. They row out together in a small boat. Heimir keeps to the familiar waters, but Thor wants the deep, the water where the bottom is imagined but never seen. Thor baits his hook with the head of an ox. The sea grows still, then, not still. Something takes the bait, a pull like nothing Thor has felt. The boat lurches. The line cuts the surface like a blade. The sea begins to rise. Out of the deep, the serpent emerges, eyes burning, jaws opening wide, coils disappearing into endless darkness. Thor lifts his hammer, but Hymir, panicked, cuts the line. In some tellings, the giant is thrown overboard. In others, the boat barely escapes. Either way, the serpent sinks back into the deep, and the sea collapses.
To a modern listener, its gods and monsters. To a seafarer, it is the ocean itself, the dead calm before a storm, the sudden heave of the tide. Thor's enemy isn't a creature. It is the unpredictable upheaval of the sea, a myth born from lived experience. And once you glimpse the sea hiding underneath this story, it begins appearing everywhere, shaping giants, gods, dangers, and even the Norse map of the cosmos. From here, the mythology widens into a world shaped by water. By the early Iron Age, the people of the North had begun to personify the forces around them. Thunder cracked across fjords and echoed off mountains. Something powerful lived inside that sound. Linguists reconstruct its earliest forms as thunaras, thunder. From this ancient root came the god we know as Thor. Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, is not just a weapon. It is the slam of thunder across cold seas, the force that splits storms, the protection sailors begged for when the horizon went black. In some regions of Norway, sudden summer squalls were still called Thor's weather in later tradition. But the sea shaped even more than the storm god. Many Norse giants are not creatures of the land at all. They are sea forces. There's Aegir, the Jotun, whose very name means the sea, a host whose hall glows like golden reflections dancing on waves. His wife, Ran, casts a net for drowned sailors, and their 9 daughters are waves, each named in skaldic verse. A dangerous current pulling a man under becomes Ran's snare. A wall of storm-tossed water becomes Aegir's feast. The Norse didn't imagine the sea in metaphor. They personified what they lived with. And among these forces, one rose above all others, older, deeper, vast enough to define the very edge of the world. Jörmungandr, the Midgard serpent, the one who encircles the world. Norse sailors felt unseen forces pull at their hulls, Strömmar, the currents. They knew tidal races like Saltströmmen and Moskaströmmen. They watched warm and cold waters collide without warning. To them, the sea didn't just move. It coiled, it constricted, it stirred. A serpent sleeping beneath, a serpent whose movements churned the tides, a serpent whose rising meant disaster. While no text says the serpent is a current, the imagination behind it is unmistakably maritime. And once the serpent is understood as the living boundary of the sea, the entire Norse cosmos rearranges itself round that edge. Mimir's well lies beneath the world tree, a deep source of hidden watery knowledge. Niflheim mirrors the frozen northern seas and mists. Muspel evokes volcanic fire near Iceland. Hell is still, cold, sunless, like the deep places where the drowned rest. Jotunheim lies beneath safe fjords, storm wild world outside human control. To the Norse, the cosmos wasn't an abstract diagram. It was a map, a mental atlas shaped by shorelines, weather, and water. And at the center of this watery cosmos lies the boundary that encircles all things. Jörmungandr, not merely a monster, but a boundary, a force, a living perimeter of the human world. When the sea surged, the serpent stirred. When storms rose, the serpent twisted. And at Ragnarok, when the serpent rises, the sea floods the land. When the forces of the ocean break their bounds, the world of men is undone. And now, with myth and worldview in place, we return to the Vikings themselves, the seafarers who lived these forces daily and who gave the serpent its form.
kids will be kids, which just goes to say kids will be curious. They get into everything. If there's a loaded firearm in the house, they could get their hands on that too. Keeping firearms locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition in a place inaccessible to kids can help keep your loved ones safe from family fire. Safe gun storage saves lives.
Before we talk about the serpent, we need to talk about the sailors who dreamed it. The Vikings, seafarers of ice and fog, were not just warriors or raiders. They were navigators of extraordinary precision. They read the sea as we might read a compass. To them, the ocean was not empty. It was alive with signs. They tracked driftwood, patterns, bird flight, cloud texture, and the subtle temperature of water beneath their fingers. They recognized the North Atlantic not as chaos, but as a rhythm, a circulatory system of the earth.
The sea was their sky. Its colors told them where they were. The gray-green meant the coastal shallows, the deep cobalt, the open North Atlantic, and the long, invisible tug beneath their hulls. That was the serpent's pull.
For the Norse, the ocean's invisible movement was a force both divine and familiar. They called it Stromer, the current, and they feared and followed it in equal measure. In this motion, they saw both life and death, order and danger. That duality became a myth, a story, a symbol. Jörmungandr, the serpent who was both boundary and heartbeat.
Odin cast the serpent into the deep sea that encircles the world. There it grew until it surrounded all lands and bit its own tail. When it releases its tail, the world will end.
That image, the serpent biting its tail, might sound like mythic abstraction, but it carries a startling resemblance to the ocean's real behavior. Currents loop and circulate endlessly, feeding back into themselves, maintaining balance. And when that balance breaks, and the serpent releases its tail, chaos follows. In the poetic Edda, the serpent's thrashing raises waves that swallow Midgard. For seafaring people, this was not fantasy. It was lived experience. The terror of storms, the awe of tides, the mystery of currents unseen yet undeniable.
The serpent is the sea seen from above, twisting, circling, endless. And like the sea, it both protects and destroys. It encircles, yet threatens. It contains, yet devours.
To the Norse, this serpent was not just monster. It was mechanism. A way to imagine the unseen, a way to make meaning of motion. The name Jörmungandr translates roughly to the Great Serpent, but its second half, Gundr, is far more enigmatic. Philologists tell us that Gundr can mean many things, a staff, a spirit, even a magical emission or wind. But in dialects across Norway and Iceland, it also describes things that move, threads of air, spirals of water, twisting power. Elder Hyde's research, Gand side og anvind, even shows that Gandr could describe invisible currents, a breath that travels through nature. So imagine it. The serpent's very name carries the sense of motion, of a winding, living energy connecting the world.
When the old poets said Gandra, they meant movement with will, a thread of life within the elements. Wind and water shared that spirit. You could not see it, but you could feel it in your bones.
This is where myth meets mechanics. The serpent's body becomes the metaphorical thread binding the world's waters together. When the Norse reached unknown shores, they didn't name places for kings or saints. They named them for what the world was doing. Stromfjord, current fjord. Stromsea, current island. These names appear in the saga of Eric the Red, marking the very places where tidal streams were strongest, predictable, powerful, and dangerous. The word Strömmar meant current or stream. The name placed for it was to recognize its pattern, to map the serpent's body in the world.
These weren't metaphors. They were navigational boats. Poetry turned into cartography. The sea spoke in motion, and they answered with names.
The language of the Norse is full of these subtle acknowledgments. Gandvik, the magic bay, likely a fjord marked by twisting tides. Every name was a mark of respect or warning. The serpent had many faces. Each was a place where the sea moved like a living thing.
Remember, my son, the wise sailor studies the tides and the currents, for they are the hands of the sea, and they decide whether a voyage lives or dies.
That's from the King's Mirror, written around 1250 CE. It's one of the earliest manuals of seamanship in the medieval world. A dialogue between father and son that teaches everything from trade ethics to celestial navigation. In its maritime chapters, it speaks directly of Strömmar, currents, and warns of whirlpools that devour ships that fall within their course. One of these, Buskaströmmen, off Lofoten, became the prototype for the word maelstrom, the world's first recorded tidal vortex.
The Norse didn't fear the whirlpool only as danger. They feared it as a mouth of the world, where the serpent's breath pulled inward.
These records prove something profound. The same culture that mapped Strömfjord, that warned of the maelstrom, also imagined a world-encircling serpent beneath the waves. Myth and manual, story and science were two sides of the same coin.
For over 50 years, HCC has been here for you. Affordable, accessible, focused on your success. This is your college, growing, evolving, expanding with you. More bachelor's degrees, stronger workforce training, online learning with global reach. A new name, the same mission, bigger vision. Houston City College, local focus, global reach. Register now at hccs.edu.
Before we go any deeper into this story, I want to pause and place a lantern on the path. Because when we walk between myth and science, we have to move carefully. The ground shifts underfoot. There are three questions that follow us down this rabbit hole. The first is retrojection, the danger of seeing our modern world inside an ancient one. The Vikings had no concept of global ocean circulation or thermohaline systems. What they did understand was the feel of moving water, the tug beneath a keel, the drag in a narrow fjord, the way the sea could breathe without a wind. When we draw parallels to modern oceanography, we're not claiming they knew the AMOC, only that their lived experience rhymed with patterns we describe today. The second is reductionism. Jörmungandr is not a simple symbol. It's a cosmic tension, a boundary keeper, a prophecy waiting beneath the waves. If we reduce the serpent to just a current, we drain the myth of its depth. Instead, we're exploring how physical experience and mythic imagination might have echoed one another, how the sea's motion could have shaped a metaphor without erasing its spiritual weight. And the third question, consideration, is confirmation bias, our tendency to find exactly what we're looking for. It's true that place names like Strömfjord and passages from the King's Mirror resonate with this reading, but myth is full of contradictions, excess, and symbol systems that don't line up neatly. We have to let the evidence resist us when it needs to. So this isn't an argument that Jörmungandr is the North Atlantic current. It's an exploration of how humans across time have tried to make sense of invisible motion through story, through language, through observation, through awe. It's an attempt to listen for resonance, not just force equivalence. Because somewhere between the serpent that circles the world and the currents that circle our ocean, there's a shared human instinct to witness the unseen, to name it, and to understand our place within its flow. When you combine philology, the myth, the maritime record, the serpent takes on a new meaning. It's the sea itself, a living metaphor for global circulation. The serpent's body mirrors the path of what we now call the North Atlantic Current, looping from the Caribbean across the Atlantic, curling around the British Isles and flowing north toward Norway.
The serpent's head biting its tail is balance. It is the ocean in harmony, the currents feeding themselves. But when the serpent lets go, when the rhythm breaks, the seas rise, the climate shifts, the world trembles.
Ragnarok, then, may not only be mythic apocalypse, but environmental imbalance, the serpent's circulation undone. The Norse understood that when the sea's motion falters, everything that depends on it does too. Today, we know this serpent by another name, the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, or AMOC. It is a massive system of ocean currents that carries warm water northward from the tropics and returns cold, dense water southward at depth. This circulation regulates Earth's climate, keeping northern Europe temperate, shaping monsoons, influencing carbon absorption. But here's the chilling part. Scientists have found that AMOC is slowing, disrupted by melting Arctic ice and freshwater runoff. As saltwater density changes, the great ocean conveyor loses its rhythm. It's as if the serpent is loosening its tail.
When the serpent sleeps, the seas fall still. But the stillness is not peace, it is imbalance. The old myth becomes prophecy.
If Jörmungandr symbolizes the ocean's encircling pulse, then today, that pulse is faltering. The Norse saw the serpent stirring as the sign of an ending, a flood and upheaval. Or perhaps we can see it differently, as a warning, to respect the rhythms that sustain us, to keep the serpent in balance. The sea still breathes beneath us. The serpent still coils unseen. And its lesson, from saga to science, is simple. When the currents falter, so do we. I'm Nathan Hale. Thank you for joining me and Jörmungandr and the Currents. If this story stirred something in you, a thought, a connection, a question, I'd love to hear it. Because Down the Rabbit Hole isn't just a place where I follow curiosity. It's a place where we do. So tell me, what did today's journey make you wonder about? What hidden current did you feel under the surface? What myth, mystery, or idea should we chase next? This show is built on the sparks that refuse to let go. The ones that pull us towards deeper questions, sometimes sideways, sometimes down unexpected tunnels. Always towards something worth exploring. If you have a rabbit hole you want to see us go down, send it my way. Your curiosity helps steer this ship. Until next time, keep asking, keep searching, and above all, keep following the threads that pull you forward. Because you never know where the next spark might lead.